Hey, great grower. This is Fritz Westover, viticulturist here at Virtual Viticulture Academy and your host on the Vineyard Underground podcast. And I'm going to answer a question from the field that came in today from a grower in California. This is from a grower named Ken. Ken is growing grapes, vinifera grapes, and he had a question about pruning wounds and sealing pruning wounds. So let's just go ahead into his question and see if I can help you out, Ken. So this is about pruning wound protection. Ken says, we will begin pruning in about 10 days. And between the two of us, a husband and wife team, we can do about 100 vines per day. In the past, we covered wounds with a product called B-Lock. I've heard of that. It's a boron product. And this year, I'd like to use a spray product called Topsin M, but mixing to cover 100 vines daily would require less than 3 gallons of total solution. I'd like to mix 15 gallons, but the mixture would have to sit for several days if I do that. So the question is, how long can that mix sit without losing its efficacy? So that's mixing a pesticide and letting it sit in the water for time. And are there any similar options available in smaller quantities or products that are more easily mixed in small quantities? Well, first of all, Ken, I'm going to say you have to follow the label. Anyone listening to this, the label of your products is the law. So I'm not here to recommend products or rates. I can talk about timing. I can talk about some products that I know some growers are using, but I'm going to share some of my logic with you and some of my background in what I know as a vineyard consultant. And that is, number one, if you're mixing a product to spray in your vineyard, the absolute best practice is to mix it safely according to the label and the rates, and then spray it immediately. And this is especially important if you're putting it into water that is not the proper pH for that product. So first of all, I do talk with a lot of my growers about looking at the pH of the water that is best suited for any product that you're spraying, because there's something called alkaline hydrolysis, which can occur, especially if you have high pH water, meaning anywhere from 7.0 up to 8.5 roughly. That can cause a hydrolysis process that can actually make the active ingredient in the spray ineffective. And it can happen literally as soon as you mix that product in with the water in the tank. So first of all, we should always be looking at the pH of the water before we add our product and understand what the pH needs to be, or the range of pH that product works best. That being said, even if you're in the right pH with your water, as you let that product sit in the water, it might be exposed to sunlight, it's exposed to the water itself, to any other cations, anions in the water. And so it will degrade over time. There's a half-life of that product. And your goal is to get it onto the plant, or in this case, the pruning wound, as soon as possible for the best efficacy. So my recommendation is don't mix any more than you are going to apply immediately after you're done doing your final pruning wounds. So if you're using a product like Topsin M, they do have on the label a smaller mixing rate that you could actually mix per gallon if you're going to paint it onto the wounds, which sounds like roughly what you're doing. Maybe you're spray painting it onto the wounds. Fine. Just follow the label, but there is a labeled rate that actually breaks it down to the gallons. So if you're doing 3 gallons or 5 gallons, you can mix the proper rate for that and spray that, and only spray what you need at the time of spraying. Okay. If you're using other products like a sealant, examples would be things like Viticulture, or there's other products out there. Let's just not go into a big list of them, but there are other products that are basically going to cover the wound and be a physical barrier for protection. And I don't know how well those products hold up to sitting around in a tank, if there's any type of falling out of solution of those products, whether they're a polymer or a pinene-based product. So I would recommend any product that you're going to spray, you mix only the batch for that spray the full amount for the amount of pruning wounds you're protecting or acreage you're covering, whatever the label calls for, and then mix a new batch the next time you go in to spray. So there's a couple fungicides out there that will work for that. There's a couple of physical barrier treatments you could use that could work as well. And then there are some newer biological products that are basically organisms that you can spray onto your pruning wounds that are going to protect the pruning wound by colonizing it, but they're beneficial. They're not pathogens. So products like Biotam have received some recent research from UC Davis and show to be as effective as Topsin M in their studies. And those are basically two trichoderma species that are mixed with water and sprayed on to the pruning wounds. And some of these biologicals, like biotam, are actually organic. So if you're trying to move into an organic alternative for a conventional spray you've been doing in the past, you might consider even trying one of those. So at any rate, I hope that this has been helpful for you, Ken. I hope it gets you pointed in the right direction as far as what it is that you're going to be applying, how much you're going to be mixing. And if you have any other questions, if anyone is listening has questions, go to Vineyard Underground Podcast, click on the Ask Fritz button. You can send in a question and maybe I'll answer it here or in one of my future podcasts where we do Q&A with growers from the field just like you. If you want to view other videos and resources and information, I have a ton more available for you to check out at virtualviticultureacademy.com. Check out the grower guides and let me know what you think. Thanks.